I'm happy to present this mini talk on client termination from practice. This presentation will focus on why and how a psychologist may need to terminate a client from their practice. Next slide. Hello, everyone. I am Allison Funicelli. I'm a senior risk management consultant in the risk management group of AWAC Services Company, a member company of Allied World. Next slide. So why may a client need to be terminated from a psychology practice? One reason is because the client no longer requires treatment. The treatment has come to a natural conclusion. There are times when the treatment available through your practice may no longer be beneficial. It could be because they require more intensive treatment or their care is beyond the scope of your specific practice and they need alternative treatment. Frequent cancellations or recurrent missed appointments can reduce the benefits of treatment and it becomes very disruptive to your practice. So they may need to be terminated for those circumstances. A psychologist or the staff may feel threatened by a client, right? So you might have somebody who is threatening and you need to protect yourself and your staff, so you'll need to terminate from that relationship. And although it's infrequent, if you have someone that's threatening and it becomes very elevated, you may need to contact your local police to address the issue. I'm not going to get into a discussion about HIPAA in this presentation, but if you have somebody that becomes very threatening to you or your staff and you need to contact local police, if you go to the hhs.gov website and you search for HIPAA and law enforcement, there are guidelines from the federal government as to what information you are allowed under HIPAA to provide to the police so that you can protect yourself and your staff. You can certainly contact an attorney or the risk management professional with your professional insurance carrier to also assist you with terminating a client, especially under difficult circumstances. Although it may be uncomfortable, you may have to terminate for failure to pay for services, because certainly you are entitled to be paid for your services. I recommend that when you take on a new client or if you have current clients, that you periodically update your office practices that they sign off on, that you mention in there that failure to pay may be a reason why they may be terminated. And I recommend, you don't have to put it in the policy, but I do recommend that for yourself, you figure out an amount of money that you could feel that you can absorb if a client never pays you before you terminate them. So you want to try to avoid being thousands of dollars in debt to a client or that the client's in debt to you, so that you're not going to have to absorb a lot of money. So just think about that amount of threshold that you could absorb before you terminate that patient from the practice. Also, the treatment required may be gone beyond the scope of your practice. I kind of mentioned that already. They may need something more intense, so you may want to help transition them to an alternative program. Your clients may request to terminate from your practice. They may choose to fire you as their provider, or they may have a reason why they no longer need to terminate with you. It could be they're moving, etc. Or the client no longer is actively participating in practice. They may never show up again or reschedule appointments. So again, you want to kind of confirm when possible that the termination, whether it's on their part or your part, is in effect, so that this way you can avoid an abandonment claim. And if a client does try to bring an abandonment claim or a licensing board complaint, you're in a position to better defend yourself. Next slide. So what steps should be taken when you terminate a client from the practice or a client chooses to terminate themselves? So you need to know your state requirements. I'm going to discuss the standard things that all states require, but there are specific requirements that are specific to your state. So make sure you understand what those requirements are and that you follow those. Make sure you discuss the reason and the process for termination with the client. We don't want, again, you don't want to have her not tell them the reason why, so you want to make sure that they're clear, they understand why, and then what the process is going to be to transition them out of your practice. Avoid having termination sessions become negotiation sessions, right? Because sometimes you'll have clients that are going to try to negotiate themselves to stay into the practice. I promise I'm going to pay my bills. Just give me a little more time. And then in an instance like that, they may just be becoming more in debt to you. You know, they're going to try to manipulate you to keep you in the practice. Try not to fall into that trap. You must notify your client in writing and include the reason, factually reason why you're terminating them from the practice. Consider consulting with an attorney or risk management professional when you're drafting a termination letter. And provide your client with 3 referrals if they're going to be transitioning care to somebody else. The 3 referrals don't have to be the names of 3 specific people. I tend to recommend that you give them a list of 3 places they can go to get a list of referrals. So for example, you can say, you know, they can go back to their health insurer and, you know, get a list from there of like in-network providers. They can go maybe to your local county mental health services department may have a list, or local clinics, because sometimes when you refer to 3 specific people, if they were a problem in your practice, they may become a problem in someone else's practice, and your colleagues may not appreciate a referral of a problem client, or you may have a client that comes back and complains for some reason why it didn't work out with their referrals. So this way, if you give them a list of places they can go that has lists of names of providers, then they can pick who they want off of a larger list of people. Next slide. You want to offer emergency care. Okay, so unless you have to immediately terminate, you want to at least give a minimum of 30 days notice. This way you're available to them while they transition care to somebody else. Now you can choose to see them in those 30 days or 60 days or whatever you choose, as long as they understand when the last date of treatment is going to be in effect. But at a minimum, you at least want to be offering emergency care, which could just be phone, right? If they're in crisis or something, they call you in those 30 days, you can refer them to the emergency department or a crisis center, but you need to at least give them somebody to call in that time that they're transitioning. If you need to immediately terminate, like in those situations where you may have a client that is becoming threatening to your safety or the safety of your staff, it's really good to consult a risk management professional or an attorney to make sure that you're protected from an abandonment claim, but at the same time, protect yourself and be safe. When you send the termination letter, there's different ways to send it. So you can send it, if you're sending the letter in the mail, you want to send 2 copies. So 1 copy needs to be certified mail return receipt requested, and then 1 regular mailed copy. So if they get the certified mail copy and they sign the return receipt, you get a green card back from the post office. You can put that in their chart. And then this way you have proof that they got the letter. But if they choose to reject and not sign the letter and it comes back, the certified mail comes back, we can reasonably assume that they received the one that was sent by regular first class mail. You can also hand the letter to the client. And if you do that, again, document the chart that you handed them the letter, so you're guaranteed that they got it. Another thing you can do too is if you have a client portal where you communicate through secure email and stuff like that, then you can certainly tell them you can give it to them that way if you want, and then you have proof through the portal system that they got the letter and they opened it. That's great. That's another way you could do it. If the client says, can you just email me the letter, or you're going to choose to do it through regular email, you have to have permission from the client to do so, because regular email is not considered HIPAA compliant. So you want to make sure that you have that permission to send something like that through regular email. And if possible, if your email system has a way for you to check off in the system that you put a read receipt on the email, then when they get the email and open it, you'll get a notification back through your email system saying that it was received by the recipient and it was opened. So it's similar to getting that green card back in the mail. And whatever way you send the letter, you need to make sure that the patient or the client has an authorization form that they can sign. So if they are transitioning to a new provider and the new provider wants to get your records for continuity of care, you want to make sure that authorization form so that they can easily just sign it, give it to the new provider who will give it to you, and then the new provider can get your records. Next slide. So what other considerations do we have to think about when we're terminating a client? You really want to document in your chart the rationale for the decision and the termination process you went through. Because, as a risk manager, you always hear us say, document, 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 and it's true. Documentation is your number one key defense anytime you have a claim brought against you, whether it's a professional claim or whether it's a licensing complaint. You want to make sure that you have good documentation to support your decision. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you want to follow through on the decision and stick to the plan. Otherwise, you could wind up on a merry-go-round, right? The client wants to come back, and then you take them back, or you let them manipulate you to keep them in the practice, and then the problems continue, and it just kind of snowballs. So you want to avoid that at all costs. And then, as I said earlier, we're indicated, if somebody needs to transition to a different provider because they need a different type of care than you can provide, you want to try to help smooth that process as best as possible to transition the care to that new provider. Next slide. So although this wasn't a whole comprehensive way to terminate a patient, I've touched upon all the key aspects of it. I want to thank you for listening to the presentation. For those of you who are insured through the APA-endorsed program, American Professional Agency, one of the benefits offered is a premium credit for these continuing education mini talks. So since the program was recorded, I'm going to tell you at the end of this presentation a key word. If you attend 2 of our mini talks, 2 different topics. We have offered 4 topics. If you attend 2 of the topics, then you will get 1 premium credit as a new insured under the program or for your next renewal. If you attend all 4 and you have all 4 keywords, then you can get 2 premium credits. And you can get credit for any education that you do up to a year before your renewal or becoming a new insured. Today's keyword is transition. Once you have all of the keywords from the different presentations, you want to send an email to psychology@americanprofessional.com with the list of the 2 to 4 words for the presentations you listen to, and include your name, your contact information, and your policy or account number, or indicate that you're going to be a new policy holder, so that American Professional Agency will have the indication that you've attended these sessions and can give you your premium credit. Next slide. This is our disclaimer. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just for the sake of time, I just want to point out that this presentation was not intended, nor does it constitute legal, technical, or other professional advice or recommendations. Consult your professional advisors or legal counsel for guidance on issues specific to you. We take no responsibility to update this material or guarantee or represent that this information will fulfill your specific needs or obligations. And this material may not be reproduced or distributed without the express written permission of Allied World Assurance Company, a Fairfax company. Next slide. If you have any questions and you are insured through the APA endorsed program, you may contact the Risk Management Department at 860-284-1305 or riskmanagement@awexservices.com. Next slide. And for your insurance needs, you can contact the APA-endorsed Professional Liability Program, American Professional Agency at 800-421-6694 or psychology@americanprofessional.com. And again, just to remind you, today's keyword was transition. Thank you. And if you have any further questions, myself and my colleague will be in the American Professional Agency virtual booth off and on throughout the conference to answer any of your risk management questions. Thank you.